going to show you how to make a welt pocket for Kayla's Cloth Kids diapers. This is an alternative pocket opening to the back pocket so that it doesn't infringe on any patents. So if you plan on being licensee with me, you'll need to use these pocket openings. So here's my piece that I'm planning to use as my pocket, and you can see that I've transferred the markings over from my pattern to my piece that I'm going to be using on the diaper. Using a fabric marker, I've made two straight lines, A and B, and these lines are 1 inch from the cut edge of the pocket piece. And it's best if you can do this on both sides. Of course, I've used a marker that bleeds through so you can see both sides. So it's good to transfer these markings to both sides. It'll make it easier for you to sew your pocket piece. I've also drawn lines C and lines D, which are 3/4 of an inch from the longer edge of my pocket piece. I'm going to turn my pocket piece over, and I'm going to make a centering mark on the wrong side of my pocket piece, right in the center of line C. So that would be right in the middle of this pocket, right on line C, which is 3/4 of an inch down from the edge of the pocket. That's going to be my centering mark that I'll use to line up with my PUL fabric or my outer fabric. I'm going to make this mark right in the middle of the outer fabric on the good side, and it's going to be a 1/2 inch down from the cut edge of the diaper fabric. And I'll use that mark to line up the centering mark of my welt pocket piece right on my diaper, and that's where I'll pin the welt pocket piece to the diaper. I've placed my welt pocket piece right sides together with my diaper outer fabric, so the non-shiny side of my PUL is facing the right side of my pocket piece, and I've lined those pieces up using the centering marks both on the welt pocket and on the PUL that I made. And you'll notice that the welt pocket is overlapping or hanging over the top of the diaper outer fabric by about 1/4 of an inch right now. I'm making a front welt pocket opening on this particular diaper. There's also a back welt pocket opening that you can use, but I'll show you the front one first. I'm going to fold the top of the pocket piece down towards its center here at line C. So I'm going to fold right on line C. Then using a straight stitch, I'm going to sew a line parallel to line C that is 1 inch, 1/4 of an inch towards the center. So I'm going to move 1/4 of an inch in here from line C, starting at this line A and B, and I'm going to sew a straight stitch all the way across parallel to line C until I reach the other line, which is line A/B. Next, after I've done that, I'm going to fold my pocket piece upwards at line D and do the same thing. So starting with line A/B here, I'm going to move up 1/4 of an inch from line D and sew here on this right side of the fabric a straight stitch all the way until I reach the other edge. So now I'm ready to sew those lines I was just talking about. I've folded my pocket piece down at line C so I can see line C. I'm going to start at the edge and make sure my first stitch hits right on that edge line. And I'm going to sew 1/4 of an inch away from line C towards the center. So I'm making sure that my first stitch hits right on the line, sewing with a straight stitch 1/4 of an inch away from line C. And when you stop, you want to make sure to stop right on the line. Next, I'm going to fold up line D. Make sure that your line C piece is out of the way. And I'll fold up my pocket piece along line D. I'm going to put my needle down right exactly on that line so we all start in the same spot, 1/4 of an inch away from line D. Again, make sure that piece C is out of the way. If you want to iron line C and D down, it might help. And then start sewing 1/4 of an inch away from line D towards the center. And you want to finish right on the line. So here I have my pocket piece, my line C is there, and I've sewn this straight stitch blue line 1/4 of an inch away from line C, making sure that I started at this edge, right at this edge, and finished right at the opposite edge. And then I did the same thing for line D, starting right at that edge, sewing a straight line 1/4 of an inch away from line D, and then finishing right on the opposite line. When I turn my fabric over to the opposite side, this is the wrong side, I can see that my starting and ending stitches start and stop right in the right spots. Looking at the wrong side of my fabric, and now I have made my next set of markings. This is my original line A and line B where the stitching started and stopped. I measured a point 3/4 of an inch away from line A and line B and made another line there called E and F according to the instructions. So here I am. I'm going to cut my welt pocket open. I'm going to make sure that my little flaps are out of the way, flatten them out. Again, you can iron them if you want to. I find it easiest to fold this pocket over at this point, find the center point, make sure that those flaps are out of the way, and then make a little nip with a pair of really sharp scissors in my welt pocket. Once I've done that, I have a little slash in my outer fabric, and I can cut right through the center, make sure it's right in the middle of the welt pocket until I reach line E. Once I get to line E, I want to stop cutting my straight line right on line E, and then I'm going to cut a diagonal line. Again, make sure those flaps are out of the way, all the way over until the edge of my stitching just under line C. So a little triangular cut, and then to finish the triangle, I'm going to cut from line E right over to the edge of the bottom, or line D. So that makes a little triangle cutout right on the edge of my welt pocket. Then I'll do the same thing on the other side, cutting towards line F. So I'm going to make sure these little flaps are out of the way, put my scissors down in the center, and cut a nice straight line, stopping right on line F. Once I get to line F, I'm going to then cut diagonally out right to the edge of my stitching on both sides. So now I have these two triangular cuts right on the edge of the diaper and the slit in the middle. The next step will be to turn my welt pocket outward. So this is my good side of my fabric, and I want to flip everything out and into the wrong side. And then you can maybe even iron it down. It'll look something like this. And if you turn it over to the other side, you'll see your nice welt pocket starting to take shape. My next step will be to top stitch around the front of the diaper, around the welt pocket. So with my right side facing up, I'm going to top stitch about 1/4 of an inch away from the edge of my welt pocket, all the way around the perimeter. And there I have my welt pocket. See the welt pocket and what it looks like on the front of a snap KCK1 diaper. And this is where you would place the insert into the diaper, however much stuffing you need for the child. This is as an alternative to the back pocket opening. So you may want to do a back welt pocket opening on the inner fabric material. So you could move down about 3 or 4 inches and center the welt pocket on the inner fabric that's facing the baby's skin. This is just another alternative. Remember, on this diaper you'll have elastic up at the top, you'll have elastic at the front, so it might be easiest to place it a few inches down from the elastic in the back.